You've been in your current city for 7 years now. You have a great apartment, you have a great circle of friends, you're somewhat close to family. But a few years ago, you started to get this feeling like maybe this isn't where I want to spend the rest of my life. And not to mention, you just had a kid. So now these someday fantasies of I want to move here and start this new era as a parent where I can establish myself, these fantasies are right now. You don't have that time anymore to think about someday because that someday is today. Ultimately, you want somewhere that you're comfortable and excited to say, this is where I want to set my roots. Figuring out where you want to start your family. So this is where I was not too long ago, living in Berlin. My wife and I, we knew that we were happy, but we knew that it wasn't our forever home. Amongst all of our friends' conversations, this was constantly coming up of where should we move? When can we move? And of course, how do we actually do it? Moving isn't just logistics, it's a statement. It's a renegotiation with the world and with yourself about who you are. Most of us ended up where we are by circumstance. Either it's where we went to grad school, it's where our family is from, or it's where we got our first job. But at some point in your adult life, usually in your late 20s or early 30s, you have this thought and you ask yourself, where do I want to move for fun? And not just for fun, but to start this next phase of my life. So if you're feeling stuck with the decision-making process about figuring out where you want to move, or even narrowing it down to 2 or 3 cities, the culprit is most likely that you're asking the wrong question. The question shouldn't be, is this city good? Is this city nice? The real question is this city compatible with the way my family moves? I Noah and I traveled a lot. We went to a lot of cities where we could potentially at that time have seen ourselves moving to. Lisbon, Amsterdam, Barcelona, Miami, Nairobi, Medellin. We went everywhere. And then in June 2025, we had a baby boy. So what did we do? We kept traveling. We strapped Amine to our chest and we hit the road. We went to Korea, Japan, Sri Lanka, London. We went everywhere. This time, of course, was a little bit different perspective. And that's when we started to realize that maybe how we were thinking about potentially moving to a city is a little bit different now that we actually have this little thing to take care of. In June 2026, we officially moved out of Berlin. We moved to a city called Sitges, which is about 30 minutes south of Barcelona, a cute little beach town. And honestly, we are happier than ever. We are thriving. We are super happy with the decision. And we're excited to make this our base, excited to set roots here and really start our family. So the question is, what had to happen in those 4 to 5 years? How did 2 millennials who are very plugged in on social media way too much, probably overly conscious of what people think, how did we actually come to a decision and make the move for our family? So our process can be broken down into 3 steps. Number 1, figuring out what your current city means to you. Number 2, having a pretty good idea of what you want. And number 3, properly testing the waters. So the first part is understanding what your current city actually means to you. For us, Berlin was a city where we were a new couple enjoying each other. We had a city and an environment that made it very easy to have fun. There were lots of things to do. There were activities. Rent was relatively cheap. Our costs were low, but the amount of things that we could do and the access that we had was super high. Berlin is a city with tons of things going on because it is kind of the capital of Europe. So every brand wants to come and activate, do parties, do events. So there's always something going on, not necessarily just clubbing, which yes, there is a lot of clubbing, but there's a lot of things happening. So as a young couple, we were just loving it. We were riding our bikes everywhere. We were going for Aperol spritzes. We were just chilling and it was great. So for us, Berlin meant freedom. It also meant community. Berlin is one of the cities where international people flock to. If you're in your 20s and your 30s and you don't necessarily have any life commitments, trying to figure out what you want to do and find yourself, Berlin is probably where you're going to end up at some point. So we created a circle of friends who were in that same life stage as us. And that circle is very important to us. It was and it is this group of friends that we spend and created a lot of memories with. And then it also just kind of felt good to be in the mix. I touched on it earlier, but Berlin is sort of the capital of Europe. It was a very important city. It was, and it is, a major city with a lot of things going on. So that is something that sort of drew us to it. Living in Miami and LA previously, I liked the idea of living in a main city where things were happening. So I felt like I was never missing out. I was in the mix, even if I wasn't necessarily in the mix. So yeah, so for us, Berlin really meant three things. It was freedom, it was friendship, and it was relevance. Now, of course, in the same way that Berlin was a lot of good things for us, it also wasn't a lot of things that we wanted as well. It didn't have the family vibes. It wasn't the most comfortable place. It didn't feel like the safest place sometimes. It didn't have this access to nature, which was very important to us. It wasn't clean, it wasn't quiet. So there were a lot of things that we realized were lacking. And the important part is that we probably wouldn't have realized how important these things were to us unless they weren't there at some point for us in Berlin. So do that. Take stock of your current city, what it means to you. Think about what are the memories that you have there and what are the core ideas and concepts that make this city important to you. Once you have that, once you understand what your city means to you, then you can move forward to the next step in the framework, which is asking yourself, what do you really want? So this step actually has two parts. There is the first part, which is kind of more surface level fun, which is what do I want from a city? What are the attributes that a city needs to have? And the second part, which is a little bit deeper, is what do we actually need for the city to be compatible with our family and how we actually do things. So in terms of attributes for a place, my wife comes from a Mediterranean place, a Mediterranean background in Spain. And me, I lived a lot of places in the US, but my best memories are the few years that I spent living in San Diego. So when it comes to the very basic things of a place that we were looking for, there were three things: nice people, nice weather, access to nature. Three very basic things, not unique, not very groundbreaking. So what you need to do is sit with it, go a little bit deeper, and find some specific things that you actually want from your city. For us, this meant access to restaurants and bars, proximity without being directly in it. This meant having a gym and a coffee shop and a daycare that was relatively close and easily accessible for us as well. This meant having a decent international community, but without it being overrun by top nomad lists or by constant stag parties and hen dos coming in and going crazy in the town. We also wanted our family to enjoy the place that we were living. We had our parents visit us in Berlin and they didn't really like it that much, and fair enough. So think a little bit deeper. What are the things that you want beyond just the basic attributes of a city? What are those things day to day that are important to you and your family? A good way to do this is take the positives from that first part of the framework where we asked ourselves what our city meant to us, and then think about what things we actually want to take from that into our new city and what things are lacking. So that's the first part of asking what you want, the attributes of the city. Now, the second part is thinking about family compatibility. How do you figure out if a place is truly compatible for what you and your family need? How can you feel confident that you not only pull certain things from a place, but that you can also naturally and graciously give back to a place? Now, you would probably assume family compatibility, this must be a very complicated, know thyself sort of esoteric process, but it's not. This is actually a very simple thing that I've whittled down as the parent of a 1-year-old. And it is this: decide what type of family you want to be from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. is the window when everyone's awake, everyone's at home. 9 to 4, your kid is at daycare or school and you're working. 7 p.m. and after, you're doing dinner, you're doing family time, you're going to sleep. So that window from 4 to 7 is the time where you have the flexibility to be whoever you want as a family. For us, we wanted to be active beach people. We wanted to be able to make moves, go outside, do things, do sports, ride bikes. This was a very important part of who we saw ourselves as a family. So you need to decide who you want to be from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Are you a cultural family that wants to go to theaters and plays? Do you want to go rock climbing? Do you want to go hiking? Do you want to just chill at home and watch Netflix for a couple hours every night? Totally fine. It doesn't matter. Just decide and define what type of family you want to be from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. because that is going to be a major deciding factor as a young parent of where you are going to be happy and if that place is compatible with the way your family actually moves. So the last step in the framework is actually testing the waters. This is probably the most difficult part, also because it involves the most friction. This involves you spending some time, some money, and planning your trip to a place. Because what you're doing here is you're not just visiting a place to check it out. You've already done that. What you're doing is seeing if this place is compatible by simulating real life in this new place. Here is what testing the waters is not. Hitting up a few restaurants and cafes that you researched, doing a walking tour of the town to try and get a quick download, pulling a few things from a top things to do blog post, staying in a hotel in the city center, and venturing out for a few day trips. These are things that tourists do to say, we like this city. Totally fine, but what we're after is something a little bit deeper. I believe you absolutely need to simulate your real life in a place for you to know if that place is somewhere you could live. So this includes things like putting your kid in daycare, commuting to and from work, taking kids to activities on the weekends, having routines of dropping your kid off and going back home for the few hours that you would, and then going back to pick them up. Whatever it is your family does from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. and doing that for at least a week. Getting groceries and cooking at home, hiring services. These are things that are going to happen long term. These are things that happen in a real family's life in a place. So naturally, you need to understand if these things work in this new city that you're thinking about moving to. And this is why moving to a new city or a new place is a long-term game. You cannot just wing it. You really have to understand if a place is for you. So that means it's not a 2 to 3, even a 5-day trip. This has to be a 10, 14, 21 day staycation. You need clarity on what the daily flow of life is. Good, bad, and surprising. For us, the best time to do this was during our maternity/paternity leave, because we had a young child with us, so that absolutely affected the way we do things. But it also just gave us the space to really take the time and figure out how we wanted to move in that new city. So being from Barcelona, my wife had been to Sitges a few times as a teenager. I had never been, but it checked all the boxes from those first 2 steps in the framework, so we decided to test it out. We booked a full month in Sitges from December to January, also to escape the Berlin winter. And we found an apartment and we did all the things. We found a daycare that we liked, we found a gym, we found a grocery store. We figured out what that daily walk would be so our kid would nap on the way to daycare, the routines of going home, picking him up, all of these things that were going to be a very real part of our life, we simulated to see how it felt and if it was something that we wanted to continue to do there. This month uncovered a lot of things for us that we would not have been able to know or understand if we had just visited as tourists. We realized that even though Barcelona was only 30 minutes away, that really didn't matter because we didn't care about the city as much as we thought. Because Sitges had everything that we wanted, we didn't necessarily need to go into the city. We realized that having a grocery store within walking distance was a non-negotiable. We realized that having that 30-minute walk from home to daycare was perfect because that's the time when our boy could nap, and then we could also have a little bit of empty space to think and breathe, which was, again, non-negotiable, very important. We also realized that we liked the idea of living near a school or in a school area, because even though our kid is very far away from starting school, we liked the vibe. We liked seeing parents picking up their kids, walking with their kids, the energy, the sounds. This felt really good to us, and it was something that was going to help us sort of step into that new era that we were looking for properly. If we had treated this like a week-long trip to just check the boxes and see if the city was good, we probably would have stayed in the city center. We probably would have done the walking tour. We probably would have gone to a couple of restaurants, and we would have said, yeah, this is nice. But we would not have been able to see what the daily energy is like as a parent. We wouldn't have been able to have interactions with other parents. We wouldn't have been able to see and meet that Dutch family that lives right down there, who has 3 boys who are constantly riding bikes, and that we are like, yes, we want to be friends with them. We wouldn't have had time to create a relationship with Miguel, who runs the gym that we go to, so that we can, be happy there as our third place. We wouldn't have been able to create these relationships. We wouldn't have been able to find our vibe, our way of moving, and our flow if we had just tried to fit it all in within 1 week. No matter who you are, you can't just spray and pray locations. You can't just try and hit up 6 different spots for a week at a time to decide where you want to live. You really have to settle in to a place to really understand the energy and see if it's a place where you can see yourself. So I'll end this by saying, if you are a new parent who is thinking about moving to a new city, starting a new era in your life as a parent, as a family, figuring out where you want to set roots, you got to take it seriously. You can't just wing it. You can't just sweep it under the rug, add it to the list of your commitments. You really have to be intentional about how you make this decision. High-level families think big picture, and thinking about where you want to raise your family is as big picture as you can get. Where your kids say they're from, the influences that they have, the access that they have to nature, that 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. window, these are all things that are going to greatly affect how your kids grow up, how you raise your kids, and the relationship that you have together. These are all things that are absolutely worth that temporary discomfort. And so while the window is never fully closed, you can technically move whenever you want. As a new parent, this is your time to make the move. You owe it to yourself and your family to love the place that you live. So go do it.